Hi, I'm Jen Barnes, and you're about to experience how to ditch the old ways of doing things, embrace your neurodivergence, learn tips and tricks to function optimally, and love yourself, neurodivergence and all. Welcome to the Self-Loved Woman podcast. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I want to talk about a big topic, something I've been seeing a lot in myself and in a lot of other people, especially the people I work with, but really just even society at large. And what I'm noticing is that fear and doubt are keeping a lot of people stuck. And sometimes it even can get me into a stuck place. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Like, we come by this honestly. As a society, there's plenty of things to be fearful of right now. But as ADHD women entrepreneurs, we, first of all, are doing big things. We are stepping out of our comfort zone. If you're building a business, you are doing something that you've never done before. And that takes courage, especially as an adult, like a baby when they're learning to walk or they're learning a new language, they're not stressed or insecure about it, at least not to our knowledge, right? Like they seem just fine to just try and put themselves out there and it's great and awesome. But as adults, we know the risks that we're taking. We know that people might criticize us or say, "Who do you think you are?" Which is maybe what parts of us already are questioning in our head, right? From old messages we got. And so we are stepping out and doing big things. And so it makes sense that this fear and doubt would pop up and be like, yo, don't do this. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the purpose that serves, why that fear and doubt is there. But before we do, I want to also add that as ADHD women, most of us weren't diagnosed or didn't even know we had ADHD in our youth. And so, we grew up, I don't know about you. I mean, I grew up kind of like fearing being in trouble and being like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And definitely staying small so that, or at least relatively small, so that there was no chance anyone could criticize us any more than we are even criticized. You've heard me quote that estimate before that by the age of 10, ADHD kids have heard 20,000 more negative or critical comments than kids without ADHD. And that's a conservative estimate when you break it down. So if you think about that, of course we have fear and of course we have doubt. And the doubt we also come by super honestly, because with ADHD, I mean, let's face it, it can be hard to get shit done sometimes. It can be hard to make happen the things we want to have happen. Not impossible, but there are times when we maybe have disappointed ourselves, especially times before we had the tools we needed and the strategies and the systems and all the structure, or if structure's like your curse word, then whatever it is, that system that works for you. But before you had all that, you likely failed. You likely didn't make things happen. And you know how I feel about the word failure, right? I mean, I don't see it as failure. I see like when things don't go the way we intended, it's like, okay, something didn't work here. What do I need to tweak? What do I need to learn? And that's not how society looks at it. So a lot of times our brains are like, and we're afraid of failing. And then the catastrophe that would cause, not only on the outside, if there's outside consequences of that, which, for a business could be losing money. It could be putting in a lot of time and effort or time away from your family or other things that you love to do this, right? And so there can be all these outside consequences. But and other people criticizing us for like, oh, nice try, whatever. I mean, some people are snarky and don't mind their business. But the other piece of it, and I think actually the piece that's probably scarier for us, is that inside the amount of criticism we will give ourselves is something that we fear. Oftentimes, I've noticed people fear that they can't handle it. Like, oh my gosh, I couldn't handle it if I did that. And when they say they can't handle it, yeah, they list off external reasons. But when we really dig in, it's that they couldn't handle the inner pain and discomfort of it not going well. And so we come by this super honestly. Like there is no shame in having this fear and doubt. And a lot of times this fear and doubt is there to protect us. We have parts of us that hold these feelings because they're just trying to say like, this is kind of concerning. Don't do this. Like fear is usually afraid we're going to be harmed in some way. Doubt is usually like a cautionary thing, like, be careful. And they work together a lot, I find, not always. I know inside of my system, they tend to work together, but not always for others. And so we'll talk a little bit about what to do with this later, but you might even start to notice that. But it's important to recognize, that these feelings, if you don't like the word parts or these parts, are trying to help you in some way. They are trying to protect you from what they believe is certain danger, right? Or at least what they believe is a threat of danger, a valid threat. And the thing is those parts of us came online when we were much younger, when maybe we weren't as capable as we are now. So when you were a little girl, you wouldn't have been able to start a big business. But there's a chance that, or even a small business, but there's a chance that these parts of you don't realize that you're a grown-ass adult and you've got amazing skills and capabilities. And if you hear a part in your mind going, yeah, but you got ADHD and you kind of suck because of that, I want to first recognize that part is trying to help protect you and also name like, that doesn't have to be true. And I suspect if you sit with it, you can think of times when that wasn't true, when you have been able to get stuff done with ADHD, when you have been able to be effective and productive and do amazing things in your life. You probably wouldn't be here if you didn't overcome something. It doesn't even have to be, I have all these degrees. I mean, for a lot of people, especially people who tend to follow me just because that was my journey, is masking through achievement. Anyone else? It's like, okay, we're just gonna, work crazy hard to the point where we're just like barely functioning so that we can overachieve and not get in trouble. So, I mean, if that's you clearly have done some stuff, right? I mean, we may want to learn other ways to do stuff so that we're not also burning ourselves out the way we used to. At the same time, you have been able to do things. And if you're in the camp where you're like, I've done nothing, Jen, I haven't gone to college, not that college is like the end all be all, but like I haven't been able to hold a job. Hey, you've done something. I guarantee if you look at your life, there's something you've done in your life that's amazing. Maybe you're a mom. Maybe you own a house. Maybe you are able to do your laundry at least once a month. I mean, like with ADHD, that is no small feat. Let's be real. Maybe you've read a lot of books. Maybe you listen to podcasts. Maybe you're creative and have done cool stuff like that. It doesn't have to be big accomplishments that go on some accomplishment board to have been able to do things. I mean, you're listening to this, so somehow you got yourself to do something that would hopefully be helpful for you. So eventually, as you're seeing, what we want to do is start to recognize like poke holes in our beliefs that we can't do stuff. But I want to unpack this a little more because like I said, these parts are just trying to help you. And so if you're going to work with the fear and doubt, or if you want the fear and doubt to, quote, go away, which by the way, it's not going to go away. We're always going to have fear and doubt. Those are normal human emotions. It's just that perhaps our goal can be, or intention can be, that we're not splayed by it, that we're not like derailed and I keep on say things like disastered by it. That's not even a word. My words are not with me right now. But we want to be able to not fall apart when we experience fear and doubt and have everything stop. That to me seems like a more reasonable objective to move towards. And so it's not about pushing down the fear and doubt or nope, I can't feel fear and doubt, right? I do a vision exercise every morning with where I'll be December 31st, 2024. And it's a really cool thing that I learned. I teach it in my program. Anyway, but I noticed doubt coming in. I was like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I know what to do. I'm a therapist. Like when you're in that fear and doubt. So even if you're a therapist, you're like, yeah, I know that, Jen. Because when you're in the middle of it, it's really hard to remember. So I'm going to tell you what you can do. I would love to be able to tell you this is a quick fix. I would love to be able to say like, oh, all you do is this. And then the fear is like, I get it. You can handle this. See you later. But that's just not true. In my almost 24 years in the field of mental health, I will tell you that the only way out is through. It's that whole beach ball metaphor I use all the time. If you've ever tried to hold a beach ball underwater, you can do it for a while, but it takes a lot of effort. And eventually the beach ball breaches the surface, often in the form of a big explosion, right? And that's what happens with our big feelings. When we push them down, when we hold them down, eventually they bubble up. And oftentimes they bubble up in anger, which is probably another thing I should talk about because this week I've been noticing my own anger and noticing conversations with women about anger and how hard of an emotion that is for us to express to other people because of the societal expectation that anger is not okay. So I need to deal with my own anger this week before I cover that. Otherwise, you're just going to hear a rant. So I'll circle back to that topic another time. But what I want to say is if we try and push away our fear and doubt, it's just going to get louder and it's going to permeate every area of our life, especially the areas where we're trying to go bigger, where we're trying to start a business or build a business. So what do we do instead? Well, first we notice the fear, the doubt, whatever the big feelings are that are coming up. We acknowledge like, hey, I see you. Yep. What's your message? We want to sit with it. We want to feel the feelings. We want to sit with it. We don't want to get stuck there. Like I'm not suggesting you wallow for weeks and weeks in fear and doubt. Is wallowing the right word for fear and doubt, by the way? I don't know. That might be sadness. Anyway, you don't want to be stuck in the fear and doubt forever. It's just that if you don't feel it at all, it's just going to keep poking at you and pestering you because its message hasn't been heard. The parts who hold it have a message for you. And so what you need to do is make space for the fear and doubt and lean into it and get super curious. Let yourself feel the feelings. I like to do this with some silence, which I know can be hard for ADHDers. I just had a creative idea this week. When you're sitting in silence, if it's really, really hard for you, why not have a fidget? Right? When you're like, if you're trying to do mindfulness or meditate, like, I don't know, could you have a fidget with you? Like that could be an option. But let yourself just be with the fear and doubt. And maybe for like, just a minute even, or 3 to 5 minutes for starters, right? You could go longer. And then let yourself free write. Like, stream of consciousness. So you're just writing whatever comes up for you. It doesn't have to make sense. You don't even have to complete your thoughts because I know our brains go faster than our pens. This is part of ADHD. And so you can just like free write. Don't pay attention to grammar, sentence structure, or even completing sentences or thoughts. The point is not to create a novel or something that's readable. The point is to get it out so these parts have a voice and so that you can hear their message. A lot of times after I write 3 pages, and I will be honest, it tends to take about 3 pages for me, which is what Julie Cameron recommends in her book, The Artist's Way. Now, she's doing it for a different purpose to help artists with writer's block, but I really feel like it's the same thing. So after you write 3 pages, you'll start to see like, oh, the concern is this, the concern is. And you might even ask, like, when you come up with one concern, the next question is, and then what would happen? Because sometimes the concern is surface, right? Well, people would judge us. Okay, and then what would happen? Or, oh, we'd have money problems. Okay, then what would happen? A lot of times for most people, it goes straight to, I'd lose my home and be unhoused. And so it's like, that tends to be a big one for people, but there's lots of them. And it's important that you really let these parts have a voice and really sink into what their concern is and then work with them on how you're going to address it. Like, what steps are you going to take? Because don't get me wrong, vision meditations and manifesting and all that is lovely. but it's not going to work if you don't do this inner work with the parts of you that don't trust you can do it. At least that's my experience. You can ask others and see what they say. I personally have never found that to work. And I am a kick-ass manifester. I will tell you, I can manifest the hell out of anything. Well, maybe not anything, but lots of things. And I will tell you, when I have fear and doubt, it's like this cloud that disconnects you from your spirit energy, from your intuition. And so until you deal with the parts of you feeling that way and really understand what it's about for you and make a plan. It doesn't have to be like a 36-step plan of how you're going to prevent this from happening. No, it's like, here's what I'm going to do to be responsible with the risk I'm taking by going into business. Here's how I'm going to handle it if I get criticism from people. You can script stuff. I mean, we're all neurodivergent here, right? Like, practice, script out what you'll say. If someone is like, oh, wow, I can't believe you're doing that. You can say, really, that's interesting. Tell me more if you want to know more from them. I actually lately have really been liking saying something like, oh, that's an interesting thing to say when someone's doing something really big and scary for themselves. It's a little snarky. I'll just say I'm perimenopausal, so I have a lot less energy for being a compassionate response. If someone says something asshole-ish to me, I'm like, maybe I don't have to always respond with like pure compassion or, whatever. I'm still kind. That's not an unkind thing to say. It's just very direct. But script out what you're going to say if criticism is a thing. Even plan for what you'll do with your internal criticism. The mind things that'll happen, the parts of you that'll be scared. And for sure, there could be some deeper, wounding inside of you, whether you call that trauma or something else, that you may need to work with more deeply. And there's lots of ways to do that. My favorite is therapy, but I'm a therapist, so I'm biased. And IFS therapy is my favorite, but I'm an IFS therapist, so I'm biased. But there's lots of ways to work through that. Trauma Center, trauma sensitive yoga is more of an indirect way to work with trauma. But there may be some deeper layers that you find you need to work with. All right, y'all. This is a relatively short one. We had like marathon session last week with Danny Donovan, which was so fun. So if you missed it, go back and listen to that. It was a real honor to have her on the podcast talking about the anti-planner, which is seriously, it is like the best. It's like the procrastinator's Bible is what she said people call it. And I swear to you, it is. But it's not a book you read cover to cover. It's when you look for a strategy that you need at the time. And anyway, it's really awesome. I should tell y'all, I'm not like an affiliate of her. I just really think it's awesome. And when I find a tool is awesome, I am like a huge proponent. Like even if I find a restaurant that's amazing, I'm one of those people who if I'm in a restaurant and like the server did something really well, I'm like, yeah, you know what? That was really amazing service tonight. Thank you. Or one of those people. It probably makes people uncomfortable, but I really want to put that kind of gratitude out into the world. So anyway, okay. All right. So that's all I got for you today. If you're not following the Self-Loved Woman Way podcast yet, please follow where you get your podcast and also share. I would love it if you share. All right, y'all. Take care.